All right, guys, in today's video, we're going to go and talk about every single competitor. I have pictures and I want to tell the story of every single person that's turned pro this year in the new NPC and IFBB Fit Model division. This is a project that I've been working on for a while, guys. I put a lot of energy into this presentation. So if you're not listening to our podcast, The Pro Physique Code, or, paying attention to the sport right now, and if you're new to me, I've been coaching in the NPC and the IFBB for 15 years. So I've seen the entire history of the bikini division before it happened, through its history into where it's at now, and then obviously this new fit model division. So I thought it'd be fun to do a video because I've been tracking data for a few years. Let me see if I can show you guys like where my brain goes. So this is actually an Excel spreadsheet that I've made the data of all the national shows since 2017. And I have another spreadsheet that goes back farther, but 2017 was the peak for the bikini division, which we'll talk about in this presentation. So just so you guys understand a little bit about how my brain works, I tracked the data and I've looked at every single competitor this year. Why? Because as a coach, I want to be the best. And to be the best, you have to understand the division. You have to understand what the criteria is, and how to bring your athletes in a great position. And so I want to start here with the thumbnail for the screen here that you see, because I think a lot of people hear the term fit model and they immediately get turned off. And if you haven't been around the sport for a long time, that's exactly what happened with bikini. In fact, the first time I attended a bikini competition at a bodybuilding show, I left. I thought, oh, I don't want to watch this, because it was literally just girls walking out in off the rack bikinis, and it didn't represent bodybuilding to me at the time. However, the sport has progressed a long way. And so as the bikini division became the dominant division in women's bodybuilding, and men's physique became the dominant division in men's bodybuilding, a respect was born for the physique of the bikini competitors. And I think what we're going to talk about here is, why did they have to start fit model? Why is there a fit model division this year? But I want to say, fit model is not a new division. Fit model is bikini in a classic sense. Okay, it is the same division. They just are bringing the physiques back to where it was when it was at its peak, and we're going to explain why they did that. We're going to talk about what the physique looked like back then. But ultimately, yeah, this is just me having fun. I am not representing the NPC or the IFBB in any way. I'm just a coach. I've had more than 100 people get an IFBB pro card. I've won, I think, 5 or 6 overall national titles as a coach. And I've had 8 competitors go to the Olympia, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And for a long time, it was my goal to win the Bikini Olympia. And so I've got a very strong connection to the sport. I love the new direction. I love that it's building a lot of excitement for current competitors, for women, and for even some of my past competitors that haven't competed in a few years. It's bringing some excitement back. So we're not going to address the natural bikini world. We're just going to address fit model for this video. But if you guys want, make more videos like this. I'm learning. This was a fun little project for me. And you know how when you do something the first time, you figure out how to do it. Well, this is it. So on the screen here, you have Angelica Teixeira. And this is one of her 2 Olympia wins. I believe this was 2017. Might have been 2018. I don't have the year here on here. And then next to her, you have a young lady by the name of Misty Yang. Now, the reason I chose her to put up here, I just felt they looked pretty similar, right? Misty's got great shape, great muscularity. And I don't think anybody would look at either of these physiques and think they're not impressed. These are very impressive physiques. In fact, one is an Olympia champion. The other is a pro. So yeah, I think fit model is going to be a very exciting division going forward. Okay, so let's get into what this is about, and I'm going to show you every single fit model pro this year. So why did the NPC add the fit model division? So I want to show you what the Olympia champions look like at the peak of the competitors that were entering the sport. Okay, so this is Courtney King on the left. If you're not familiar with Courtney, she was a very young competitor. She earned her IFBB pro card in high school, won her Olympia title in 2016, and never competed again. Okay. This is Angelica Teixeira winning the Olympia in 2018 in the center. And this is Ashley Kaltwasser, the undisputed greatest of all time bikini competitor. I can't even keep up with how many pro wins she has anymore. It's over 50. Think about that. She's won more than 50 pro shows. very few competitors will ever even compete in 50 pro shows. She's probably in the 200 range for shows, I'm guessing. I can't even imagine how many times she's gotten second. I've been at a lot of these shows. So Ashley was a 3-time Olympia champion, who left the sport and then came back and has since been a perennial first call out, even, top 5, top 3, last year placing second. So she's still very relevant 10 years later into the sport, which you'll see that her physique has changed. I didn't really address that here, but these were the physiques that were representing the bikini division when it was at its peak. So again, at 2016, if you look here at the first call outs for the Bikini Olympia, if you're not familiar with the sport, you might not know these, but these were all household names if you were a competitor or a coach. Okay. We all knew India Paulino, Angelica Teixeira, Janet Liu, Courtney King. Jen Ronziti actually took second at one Olympia. She didn't have as many probably top call outs as these competitors. And then you've got Ashley Kaltwasser here. And this was actually a year that Ashley was knocked off as the reigning champion. What you'll also notice, let's go back. If you also notice, is look at the front poses. There's some stallion poses in there. Jen, Ashley, Janet are all hitting a stallion pose. India's got a cross leg pose, right? The posing wasn't as standardized. And although Courtney is here in a side pose, she actually hits the stallion pose quite often. Also, look at the back pose. There is not a single tie-in here, okay? Jen Ronziti is probably the hardest, and I believe she got second at the Olympia because the judges could see like some striations in her quads. That's what Sandy Williamson told me. But if you look at Janet Leug here compared to when she won the Olympia, much softer, much rounder, no separation. And I mean, even look at Courtney King. Courtney King is standing with her feet together, and her glutes are not big. Her glutes are not really balanced. She's got, a great physique head to toe. She wins the Olympia this year. She doesn't have the biggest glutes, but they felt she represented the division the best this year. And so, I think bikini has become a bodybuilding division. It's the biggest competitor that has balance. And that's where it's really changed. And you got to be absolutely peeled, very lean. In fact, you got to be so lean that you can be very full on stage. It's become a full on bodybuilding division. Yep. And it's won or lost on the day of the show, very much. So let's talk about, this is what I consider the peak of the bikini division. And this is when I was just really getting going as a coach. My first IFBB pro card was 2014. Didn't know what I was doing then. And then my friend Lauren Conlon won the overall at Nationals. And when I was there witnessing her win the overall at Nationals, I realized I didn't really understand what the competition was about. I was coaching competitors at that point, but not really fully understanding the bikini category. And so Lauren and I started working together on stage presence, and we started traveling to a lot of shows together. Well, just a few years later, 2017 was kind of a breakout year for me as a coach. So at the 2017 Nationals, and I had a few people turn pro by this point, Lauren Dana Miller, pictured on the screen here, won the overall at Nationals in 2017. The number of competitors at that show, 276. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, Lauren's class, which was G, I believe had 45 in the one class. And my competitor also won class H, Cassie Malone or Bikini Cass. And both of them were in the middle of the overall fighting for the title. So I had two girls in the middle for the overall for the title that year. And if you also look here at North Americans, they had 269 competitors. That's just one division, 269. And again, you're getting classes of 40 to 50 girls in some of the bigger classes. So that year in 2017, 1,297 total open competitors amongst all the national shows, junior USAs, junior nationals. You've got USAs, you've got Universe, you've got North Americans and nationals. So almost 1,300 competitors that year. That was the peak for the bikini division. So why did they add Fit Model this year? Well, let's fast forward to last year's nationals. Last year's nationals, sorry, just fast forwarded twice. Last year's nationals, this was your overall winner. Okay. Obviously, a really big change in the physiques that were hitting the stage for the bikini division. Like I said, this is much more of a bodybuilding division. Bigger shoulders, bigger muscles, harder muscles, separation, harder faces, just a more overall of a bodybuilding look. Very impressive, but what we're seeing now is a pretty stark drop in the numbers of competitors hitting the stage. So over the course of those 7 years, nationals had dropped from 276 to 171. North Americans dropped from 269 down to 128. That's a pretty big drop. And then, we went from 1,300 competitors down to 742. So I think what was happening was the writing was on the wall that the bikini division was getting smaller, and the entry level women just weren't hitting the stage. They were either waiting a little bit longer or they were competing in other organizations where the requirement to look like this overall winner was not there. Um, yeah. And, we can debate that. I don't know. I'm just giving you data and things that I've seen in trends. But, as a coach, you notice when things are changing. And I had so much passion for this bikini division for so long. Even I got a little uncomfortable with what I was having to do to my competitors to get them competitive at the highest levels. So why did they compete? Why did they create this division? Here's just so you can see it on the screen here. 555 less competitors over the course. And this is just one division. The other divisions, they did add wellness, um, but wellness never really took off like bikini did, at least in the United States. And so I think they were still trying to fill that void and figure it out. And so, we fast forward a little bit and they introduced Fit Model this year. And they kind of sprung it on us suddenly, right? It was late in the year and there was a lot of flack immediately of like, oh, great, another division for women. Because there's a lot of divisions for women now. You've got fitness, you've got Fit Model, you've got bikini, you've got figure. Did I say wellness? Women's physique and bodybuilding. And so it starts to get a little muddy unless you got boots on the ground like I do, unless you're at a show every weekend. I knew right away this was going to be a success and a hit. It didn't it didn't take long for that to become apparent with everybody else in the sport, because I remember back when bikini came out thinking, oh man, I don't like this. And then fast forward a year or two and I would see the bikini division come out and I'd be like, wow, these girls look great. And that's immediately what I thought when I went to my first national show this year at Junior USA's, which I'm going to show you every single Fit Model Pro this year. So if you look at these pictures, on the left here, you have two bikini Olympia champions. On the right here, you have three girls that earned their pro card this year, right? Pretty similar, right? And one of these girls is actually my competitor, Daniela. So I had one of the first pro cards this year in Fit Model. And lo and behold, she was going to a show to compete in bikini. We did the show as a bikini competitor. The next show we did, she won the overall as a Fit Model. The next show she did, she turned pro as a Fit Model. So there's a lot of opportunity. And actually, the young lady here in the red suit next to Daniela, I think her name is Shayla Burnett, she won a bikini overall title prior to winning her Fit Model pro card. So there's a lot of similarities here. And especially at the lower levels, you're going to see athletes can probably compete in both, right? All right. So let's talk about the competitors from the Pittsburgh. Now, this was the first pro qualifier in the United States. It also happened to be a drug tested pro qualifier. Okay. I don't have all the young ladies' names. I know some of them. The one in the center is Daniela. That is my client. And again, she won the overall title at a show in Florida called the Florida Grand Prix, the natural. The one thing about competing in the natural shows in the IFBB and the NPC this year, you must compete in a show prior. So to go to a pro qualifier, you had to compete in a drug tested event. There was no requirement for placing. You just had to go get polygraphed and do all those things. So these are the first three pro cards in the division. As you can see, structure is very strong with all of them. Nice wide shoulders, nice tight waists. They've got some quad muscle. Nobody here has a tie-in. Nobody here is etched out. But they definitely, and I'll tell you this in person, looked great on stage. Now remember, I had to grab these pictures off NPC News Online. So big shout out to JM Mannion for posting these pictures for us to use, because all this data is great. Some of these pictures, the lighting wasn't great. I had to edit them. So these aren't always the best representation, though it's very good. And again, I couldn't actually get a back pose of Daniela. They didn't have one. So you just have to use what you got. So these are all the three girls that turned pro at the Pittsburgh Pro Natural. Now, Junior USA's was our first full untested natural show. The biggest name going into this show was the young lady here in green, Jane Jones. And I had actually done a story on her early in the year. She was actually at one of the first competitions where there was more Fit Model than bikini. That has since not happened very often. It's bikini is still very strong right now. Women are not, at least at the NPC like regional level, the shows that I've been to, bikini has been way bigger. But I will say this, it's changing at the national level. Currently, the only requirement for you to compete in fit model is you must do a show. So competitors don't have to do fit model. They can do a bikini show one week, go to nationals. Pro physique coach Lexi Maitland is doing just this. She did bikini at Republic of Texas. She's now doing fit model at North Americans. So she's never stepped on stage as an amateur at a regional show. And I think a lot of these competitors are going to do that. But you can look, when you look at these physiques, nobody's standing sideways. I've seen a lot of girls with their feet narrow. Posing matters. You want to create shape, wide shoulders, a tight waist. They twist the hip to the back. And the great thing here is we have the history of the IFBB Pro Bikini. This is the required front pose. You're not allowed to do the side pose. You're also not allowed to wear a suit that is blinged out. And I think as a competitor, it can be a bit intimidating when before you even do your first show, you have to spend $500 to $1,000 on a suit. Not the case. I've literally seen women show up and win overalls with an off the rack Target bikini. So you're dropping the barrier to entry for these competitors to get on stage, and I think it's a great idea. Okay, great physiques are going to shine no matter what they're wearing. So, and as you can see here, none of these suits are blingy. Some of them are more holographic or shiny, but overall great physiques. And again, this was a very small show, so you can't necessarily look at any one competitor and say she's too muscular, she's too soft. You got to remember, I think Jane Jones was in Class A at this show. There was 4 girls. The first couple shows, there was not a lot of shorter competitors. And I think like Class D had like 16 or 17. So yeah, but again, great shoulder width. Obviously, their makeup looks amazing. They all look beautiful. Their structures are really good. You can actually see, and I didn't do the back poses. My apologies, guys, but this project took a while. Grabbing all these pictures, saving them, creating. I thought about doing the back poses, and I tell you what, if that's something you guys want, I had so much fun doing this. Comment below if you're enjoying it. Maybe I'll do more of this. So this is Junior Nationals, and again, I don't know all the competitors' names. Man, did I mess that up? Is that okay? No. This is Junior Nationals. This is the show in Chattanooga, Sandy Williamson show. So this physique here, Misty Yang, 319 in the purple in the center. She actually beat one of my competitors at the show before this. She won the overall. And when my client told me she lost the overall, I said, "No way. Who could have beat you?" And when I saw this physique, I thought, "Wow, that is a beautiful physique." Like Misty has, in my mind, that is flawless balance, structure, beauty, everything. She really represents the division well here. And I don't even think she won the overall. I think number 304 won the overall here, if I remember correctly. But as again, you can see, for the most part, feet are spread wide. You don't have one foot far in front of the other. You have a slight, the problem with posing with your foot in front of the other, you can't twist. If your feet are close, you can twist that hip a little bit, create a little shape in the waist. So yeah, again, these are your 4 pro card winners from Junior Nationals. The next pro show was Universe. Now, the difference with this show is they introduced the Masters pro card, meaning they gave a pro card for over 35, over 40, and over 50. I believe. And a couple of the young ladies won like multiple pro cards. I think if I remember correctly, one young lady won like the 40 overall, the 35 overall, and her open pro card, right? So she got 3 pro cards. So there could have been more potential pros at this show. If you don't win, they don't give you the pro card. They used to pass it down. If someone already had their pro card, they would pass it down. And again, at Universe, it was a completely different lineup of competitors. The young lady in the green, I'm blanking on her name. She won the overall, I believe. And again, guys, I've been to every single show this year that's had a pro card. So again, I've forgotten some things. This show was fun because a week before we were at the show in St. Petersburg, and Brittany in the top right there in the purple, she's a local to me. She finally got her pro card. She'd been chasing it for years. So that was fun to witness. But again, overall, I think, Coach Evan and I were watching this show in person, and what we thought was, wow, these are actually great physiques. They look great under the lights. And I think a lot of people were expecting to be underwhelmed. I was not underwhelmed at all. I love the look. I love everything about this division. It's already starting to pop. Now, the following 2 weeks later in Pittsburgh, we had the Teen and Collegiate Masters Nationals. And again, this is only a 35 and over, but they have 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. So you have a lot of pro cards here. And, You're going to see a little bit more variation here because we have women that are over the age of 50. So there is going to be some differences. But again, muscularity, balance, everything looks good. Now, the young lady in the middle, 824, that is my client, Nadia Blackburn. Nadia missed her pro card in bikini a few years prior to this by one spot. We were always just there. And this was her day. It was fun to actually witness her finally get her pro card. And again, she is not a small competitor. She has got great muscle bellies, as you can see. You know, I was able to feed her upwards of 300 grams of carbs the day before the show to make sure she was full. It might have been 350 because she started dropping weight. Her glutes were full. And actually, for her to earn her pro card, she had to beat two overall winners in her class. She had to beat the over 40 and the over 45 overall winner in her class to earn her pro card. So this was a very high level competition, and great competitors came out. So again, these are all the pro card winners from the teen and collegiate masters nationals. Very, listen, I'm just a fan of the division already. Now, this was the last show in Las Vegas, the NPC USA Championships. Now, I had not been to the show since 2019 because we had the shutdown and the show kept moving. This was the first year I went, and I'm really glad I did. It was a wonderful show. The only issue really was that the pictures were so dark. I almost was wondering if I couldn't use them, but I was able to edit them and brighten them up. But this show, we saw a lot of new talent, perhaps because we were on the West Coast. I hadn't seen a lot of these competitors before, but some wow factor here. The young lady that won the overall, again in the center here, 137, I think her name's Shayla Burnett. You could just see her walking around backstage, and she had that it factor, wow factor that we talk about. I don't have her back pose here, but she had absolutely fantastic like glute size and shape, very pretty natural shape. I think she was a very worthy choice for like the overall champion, and I believe this was the biggest show of the year. There was more than, I want to say, 60 competitors in the fit model category alone. Okay. And they only do 4 classes. So we're looking at between 15 and 20 girls per class for 4 classes. The bikini division did not have 15 to 20 in all of their classes. Now they do have 8 classes, but again, we're starting to see the numbers for fit model climb. And in fact, this year at Junior Nationals, the bikini number dropped from 128 down to 84. However, they had more than 40 in fit model. So if you're a promoter of that show, fit model kind of saved the day for you. It really brought in a lot of competitors, and I think it's going to bring in a lot of excitement for the competitors in the future. And they're seeing, people right now are seeing this on stage. They're seeing it unfold before their eyes, and they're going, okay, I can do this. I have had more than 10 girls win overall titles this year who started the year thinking, I want to do bikini. Some of them, I said, what do you think about fit model? And they said, no. Then they saw fit model. Then they saw one of my girls win a pro card. They saw somebody win an overall. They saw the proof of concept, and they thought, okay, let's do that. In fact, my client Josephine just won the last overall out in California after winning, almost nearly winning her overall in bikini early in the year. We switched, and I think that's what we're going to see because these are impressive physiques. I actually like the front pose. I really like the front pose. It's not just about who has the biggest shoulders and glutes, right? It's about who has the best balance, who has the best flow to their physique. So there's more things at play here. You can have muscle, you can have shape, you can have good conditioning, but it's not so over the top that you are required to do a lot of drugs to get the look. I think that's where a lot of competitors are excited. And as a coach, when I do consults, it's one of the questions I get most, like how much drugs will I have to do to reach my goal? That is changing in bikini pretty rapidly in the last couple of years. And so a lot of girls have just opted out, said, I'm good. Even girls that already had their pro cards, I'm good. So it's going to be very interesting when they have the first pro show next year, who comes out and competes that was a bikini pro or that has earned their pro card this year. So we're up to date on all the pros this year in the NPC in the IFBB Fit Model division. So it's going to be interesting. We've got North Americans coming up in a couple of weeks, and you got like the amateur Olympia and nationals. So there will be some more pro cards awarded this year. There are no pro shows announced as of yet. So it's just been really fun to watch as a coach. I don't know if I did any more slides after this. Actually, I did. I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on when bikini changed. And as a coach, I felt it quite drastically. If you look on the end of the screen here, the left side, that is Isa Piccini, without a doubt, one of the all-time great physiques to hit the bikini stage. That was her Olympia winning 2019 physique. Now, if you look over at Angelica Teixeira winning the Olympia and look at Isa, when Isa got on stage that year, a lot of girls went, "Oh, we need to flare our lats, we need to pump up our shoulders, we need to really have glute pop." Okay, I know what we need to do now. And it changed the bikini division into less of a, the stallion pose was showing off the physique one way. This became about, okay, who's got the most shape between their shoulder, their glute, their tiny waist, and their lat. Mistakenly or not, I used to call it minifigure. After this, I said it's minifigure, because the girls were basically trying to highlight like a figure front pose in the shoulders. Before, they would never face forward. Now Isa changed that because she had such a tiny waist and great muscles. She was able to display a physique that knocked off some really good competitors. She was not supposed to win that year. She was not, she had not just won the Arnold. Actually, that year, Janet Lejeune had won the Arnold. And so everyone thought, okay, it's going to be Janet's year. She knocked off a lot of competitors, and it kind of signaled to everyone in the sport, okay, we gotta make a change. Now, that just also happened to be the year that Daraja Hill turned pro. So Daraja is the second competitor here, number 24. This picture you see here of her is her getting fourth place at the Bikini Olympia, okay, in 2022. This physique is what peak bikini looked like in 2022. She was right there fighting in the Final Four call out at the Olympia. And so as a coach, that was one of my proudest moments. Me and Daraja celebrated the hell out of that. And so, but it took its toll. Prep was so hard on Daraja that year. She also got married that year, that her physique did not recover in time for the next Olympia. And we ended up dropping down to ninth, which is no slack. But when you were fourth, you want to move up to third or second or first, right? But her body was so run down for how hard I had to push her that year. And what you're seeing a lot with these competitors, I mentioned Courtney King. She won the Olympia and retired. Really shouldn't happen that way, right? These competitors are being pushed really hard, and they're doing preps. And I think Isa is not competing this year. She competed at the Olympia last year. She dropped from, I think, I could be wrong, I think she was sixth the year before. She dropped down to ninth, and now she's not in the sport right now. So I think the bikini division started to become much more challenging for the muscle they're required, the conditioning that's required. There's also a lot more bikini shows. And so some coaches put their athletes on a lot of shows and run them down. So, and the last thing I wanted to show you here was the difference between Angelica Teixeira winning the Olympia. And then on the right, you see Angelica Teixeira got 10th at the Olympia. Look how much more size she has in her shoulders, vascularity, triceps. Look at the volume to her glutes. Now, this to me was a perfect representation of the change in the sport. Why? Because Angelica Teixeira won back-to-back at Olympias looking like she did on the left. She did one more Olympia after she had some children. Awesome. And it was very inspiring. I know to Daraja, who just had a baby. But she did one Olympia and she's done. She's retired again. Why? My opinion, she doesn't like the direction of the division. She doesn't want to do what's required to keep up with it, i.e. drugs, the hard preps. It's just a different sport now, bikini, than it was a few years ago. Is that why the division shrank? Is it just overall a change in the number of competitors? Who knows? But I think as a coach, what I like to, understand is what do we need to plan for? So I didn't really create another slide for that. So we'll just stay here. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you have any other questions about like why this division is happening, what are the criteria for it, I can do some more videos. I'm probably going to put together some more details, I think, on the back pose, talk about conditioning, things like that. And if you're interested in competing and you're looking at competing in either bikini or the fit model division, I'll put a link below to set up a free consultation with myself or one of the other coaches at Pro Physique if you have a preference. But my goals as a coach has always been to be the best that there is. And so really understanding and being at all these shows, and I've had a lot of success this year in fit model, and I plan to continue that. So it's just been a fun journey over the last 15 years as a full-time coach. And so, yeah, this was my first time making one of these presentations. A lot of effort. Hit a like, hit a share, do whatever you got to do. Comment below if you liked it. That's all I care about, guys. I just want to give back to you guys, and hopefully you enjoyed it. All right. Hope you guys are having a great day.